At 4:17 in the morning, the loudest sound in my house wasn't my alarm or a barking dog. It was the hollow, violent thud of someone's boot slamming into my front door like they owned it. The next sound was a woman's voice, sharp and shrill, shouting, "Open up! Mark HOA inspection. I have a master key." And in that exact second, standing barefoot in the hallway with my heart trying to climb out of my throat, I realized this wasn't just another HOA argument. This was the moment Tracy Whitman finally went too far and she was about to lose everything. I moved to Maple Grove Estates because I wanted quiet. That's the irony. I'm a former military police officer, retired now, and after a couple of decades of living on the edge of chaos, I wanted the kind of neighborhood where the biggest emergency was somebody forgetting to bring their trash cans in before sunset. My wife Angela and I found a house with a yard big enough for my two retired K9s, Diesel and Sky, to stretch out and heal the way they deserved. Diesel had a bad hip from his last deployment. Sky had the kind of alertness that never really turns off. They weren't pets in the way some people mean it, they were family. And also, if I'm being honest, they were the reason I slept well at night. My daughters Emma and Olivia were 16 twins, and they'd been through enough changes already. New school, new state, new everything. Maple Grove was supposed to be the soft landing. The first week it almost was. Neighbors waved, kids rode bikes, lawns looked like they'd been measured with a ruler. And then Tracy showed up like a wasp that somehow learned to drive a luxury SUV. I met her on day 9. I remember because I was outside doing a slow rehab walk with Diesel, keeping him calm, letting him sniff the grass, letting him be a dog instead of a soldier for once. I heard heels clicking on the sidewalk, click, 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 like a metronome for bad news. "Excuse me," a woman called out, but it wasn't a question. I turned and saw her coming straight toward me. Blonde hair sprayed into something that looked engineered sunglasses, even though it was cloudy, and a clipboard hugged to her chest like it was sacred scripture. "You must be Mark Reynolds," she said, looking me up and down, the way a teacher looks at a kid they already decided is trouble. "I'm Tracy Whitman, president of the Maple Grove Homeowners Association." She said president like it was an elected office with a Secret Service detail. I smiled anyway because I'm not an idiot, and I've learned the hard way that the first person to lose their temper usually loses the whole fight. "Nice to meet you," I said. "We're still unpacking, but we're happy to be here." Tracy didn't smile back. Her gaze snapped to Diesel. "Your dog has been reported for excessive noise," she said. Diesel was literally sitting there silent, blinking like he was bored of the entire human race. I actually looked around like maybe there was another dog behind me throwing a concert. "Noise," I repeated. Tracy tapped her clipboard with a manicured nail. "Barking, disturbing the peace. We have community standards here." I felt something cold slide into my chest, not anger yet, not fully, more like warning. "He hasn't barked," I said. "He's a retired working dog. He's trained." Tracy's lips tightened. "Training doesn't exempt you from HOA bylaws." Then she held out a sheet of paper like she was serving a summons. "First violation, $150, due in 10 business days." I took it, and I swear the ink was smudged like it came straight off someone's home printer. No official letterhead, no case number, no signature besides a sloppy T. "Whitman." I looked up at her. "Can I see the complaint? Or the record of it?" Tracy tilted her head, eyes glinting. "Privacy. We protect our residents. If you want to appeal, you can submit a written request with the $50 processing fee." "Processing fee," I repeated because I couldn't help it. "For an appeal. Correct?" she said, like she'd just explained gravity to me. Then she lowered her voice a notch like we were sharing a secret. "We've had issues with aggressive animals. We don't want that kind of thing here." There it was, the word aggressive hanging in the air like a loaded weapon. Diesel leaned into my leg, calm, steady, and I rubbed behind his ear. "He's not aggressive," I said. Tracy's smile finally appeared thin as a razor. "We'll see," she murmured and walked away. That should have been the end of it. A normal person would have said, "Oh, okay, paperwork mix-up," and moved on. Tracy wasn't normal. Over the next 2 weeks, the fines multiplied like somebody left them in a warm place. Unapproved yard equipment because I had a portable ramp for diesel. Unauthorized fence modification even though the fence was there when we bought the house. Nuisance behavior because Sky waited by the window. I'm not kidding. Waited by the window. Every time I asked for proof, Tracy had a script. "We have reports. We don't disclose sources. It's in the bylaws." Every time I asked for the bylaws, she emailed me a blurry PDF that looked like it had been photocopied underwater. Every time I asked for a meeting, she offered a date 3 weeks away, and only if I paid the hearing reservation fee. I tried being respectful. I tried being patient. I tried telling myself, this is just a control freak with too much free time. Then she started working the neighborhood like a campaign manager for a smear job. One afternoon I was bringing groceries in when I saw her 2 houses down leaning into someone's driveway, gesturing toward my home with dramatic little hand chops. That night I got my first visit from animal control. A tired guy in a county polo shirt stood on my porch and said, "We got a complaint about dangerous dogs." I blinked at him. "Dangerous," I repeated. Behind me, Diesel lay on his bed half asleep. Sky lifted her head, ears perked, not moving. The officer looked past me and sighed. "Yeah, I don't see it," he said quietly, "but I gotta follow up." He took a look around, asked a few questions, checked their records. "These dogs are registered?" "Yes," I said. "Vaccinated, chipped, everything." He nodded. "Okay. Sorry to bother you. Welcome to Maple Grove." As he walked away, I watched his shoulders slump like he already knew he'd be back. The worst part wasn't the fines or the random inspections. The worst part was what it did to my kids. Emma and Olivia came home from school one day looking like somebody drained the color out of them. Olivia went straight to her room without saying anything. Emma hovered in the kitchen, twisting the sleeves of her hoodie. "Dad," she said, voice shaking, "a mom in the pickup line told her kid not to come near us because we have attack dogs." Angela's face went hard instantly, like a steel door sliding shut. "Who said that?" she asked. Emma swallowed. "People are saying it's you, that you're unstable, like military unstable." She couldn't even finish the sentence. I felt the air leave my lungs, because I've heard insults before. I've had people call me worse than that. But when you watch your daughter's face crumple because adults are whispering poison about her family, it hits different. It hits like a betrayal. That night, after the girls went to bed, I sat at the dining table surrounded by paper fines, notices, printed emails, like I was drowning in my own mailbox. Diesel rested his chin on my foot, warm and solid. Sky lay near the hallway, eyes open, watching. Angela poured coffee even though it was late. "We can sell," I said finally, and I hated myself for how small my voice sounded. "We can just leave." Angela stared at me. "You don't mean that?" she said. "I do," I admitted. "I mean, maybe this is on me. Maybe I should have picked a place without an HOA. Maybe I should have known better. I'm tired, Ange. I'm tired of feeling like a criminal in my own home." I laughed once bitter because it was ridiculous. I spent years enforcing rules overseas, and now I'm being extorted over a dog ramp. Angela set her mug down very carefully. "Mark," she said, quiet but sharp, "you are not the problem. Tracy is targeting you because she thinks you'll fold. And if you fold, she'll move on to the next family and the next, and our girls will learn that bullies win." I rubbed my face, palms dragging down like I could wipe the whole mess away. "What if we're wrong?" I whispered. "What if there's something we missed? What if we're the ones overreacting?" Angela leaned forward. "Then we find out," she said. "But we don't surrender to a liar." That word liar stuck in my mind. Because deep down I knew Tracy wasn't just picky. She was constructing a reality where she had absolute control, and anyone who didn't submit became a villain in her story. And I'd seen that kind of person before. The next morning I stopped playing defense. I called a buddy who installs security systems and upgraded everything: doorbell camera, driveway cam, side yard, backyard, the whole perimeter. 4K, audio, cloud backup. I put a small sign near my porch that said, "Smile, you're on camera," because I wanted Tracy to know that her little theater act had an audience now. Then I did the thing Tracy didn't expect. I went after the paper. I requested the official HOA governing documents, the real ones, not the blurry PDF. I requested records of board elections, meeting minutes, and the fine schedule. I sent my request by certified mail so they couldn't pretend they never got it. And while I waited, I started talking to neighbors. Not in a gossip way. In a quiet, careful, "Hey, has Tracy ever?" kind of way. The answers came fast. A man named Jerry said Tracy fined him for having a non-approved holiday wreath because it wasn't the right shade of green. A woman named Nicole said Tracy threatened to tow her car from her own driveway because her registration sticker was visually offensive. Another couple admitted they'd paid thousands in fines just to keep peace because fighting her was exhausting. "She makes you feel crazy," Nicole said, eyes glossy like she still couldn't believe it. "Like you're the problem for not just obeying." That night, Angela, who was terrifying in the best way, found something even better. She'd been combing through the HOA's annual budget that Tracy posted on the community portal, and she pointed at a line item. "Look at this," she said. "Consulting fees. $10,000. To who?" The vendor name was something vague and corporate-sounding, like Whitman Community Solutions. Angela raised an eyebrow. "Whitman," she repeated slowly, like tasting the word. My stomach dropped. "No way," I said. "That's too stupid even for her." "People get stupid when they think no one will check," Angela said. That's when I called Daniel Brooks, a local attorney who'd handled HOA disputes before. He listened to my story without laughing, which I appreciated, and then he asked one question that made me sit up straighter. "Do you have video of her harassment?" he said. I glanced at the screen of my security app where a clip was saved from 2 days earlier. Tracy on the sidewalk leaning toward a neighbor pointing at my house, the audio picking up her voice clearly. "He's dangerous. Those dogs are dangerous. You should keep your kids away." I looked at Daniel and said, "Yeah, I do." Daniel exhaled. "Okay," he said. "Now we're not just dealing with HOA fines, we're dealing with defamation, harassment, and possibly, depending on what we find, fraud." Fraud. That word felt like a door opening, because fraud meant Tracy wasn't just annoying, she was criminal. Daniel drafted a cease and desist letter demanding she stop spreading false claims and stop contacting my family. We demanded the HOA produce official records. We demanded a proper hearing with documented complaints. We demanded transparency. When the letter arrived, Tracy's response wasn't calm. She didn't send an apology. She didn't back off. She exploded. The very next day, she showed up on my porch in broad daylight, pounding the door like she was auditioning for a police drama. Through the camera, I heard her voice, syrupy loud. "Mark, open up. We need to do a compliance inspection." I opened the door enough to step outside, keeping the chain on because I didn't trust her not to shove her way in. Tracy's eyes flicked to the chain and her mouth twisted. "That's hostile," she said. "It's a door chain," I replied. "It's, literally, for doors." She stepped closer, invading my space, and I could smell her perfume, sharp, expensive, angry. "You're escalating," she hissed. "You know what happens when homeowners escalate? The HOA takes action." I folded my arms. "By action, do you mean more made-up fines and rumors?" Tracy's cheeks flushed. "We have the right to ensure safety," she snapped. "And if you want access to community amenities, you'll cooperate." That was the threat. The classic HOA squeeze, play nice, or we'll isolate you from the neighborhood. I leaned in just enough so my voice stayed low and steady. "Tracy, I said you don't have the right to enter my property without permission, and you sure as hell don't have the right to threaten my family." She smiled again, that razor smile. "We'll see what the board says," she said, and walked away like she'd already won. That night a notice appeared on the HOA portal, emergency board meeting regarding safety concerns. No details, no agenda, just a time and a location. Tracy's own house. Daniel laughed once when he read it. "They can't do that," he said. "Not legally." "She thinks she can," I replied. And then the twist came because Tracy didn't just want to find me, she wanted to erase me. 2 days later I got served with paperwork. Tracy was seeking a restraining order claiming I had threatened her. The accusation hit like a slap. Me. Threaten her. I'd barely raised my voice. I called Daniel immediately. "This is her panic move," he said. "She wants to paint you as the aggressor so no one listens when we demand records." For the first time in weeks I didn't feel helpless. I felt focused. Because I had the camera footage. Every visit. Every threat, every time she lied. "Let her go to court," I said. "I'll bring the truth." But Tracy didn't wait for court. She chose chaos. And that's how we got to 4:17 a.m. I woke up to that boot on my door and Tracy's voice screaming about a master key. Angela shot upright beside me, eyes wide. "What is that?" she whispered. Skye was already on her feet, moving toward the hallway, silent but ready. Diesel lifted his head, a low rumble in his chest, not barking warning. I swung my legs out of bed and grabbed my phone. The doorbell camera feed popped up instantly, and there she was. Tracy Whitman, in a robe, hair messy, face twisted with fury, one hand pounding the door, the other waving something metallic. "Open up!" she shrieked. "I have a master key. HOA has authority." I could hear neighbors' porch lights clicking on in the distance, like the whole street was waking up to a disaster. Angela's voice was tight. "Do not open that door," she said. "I'm not," I replied, and my thumb hit the button to call 911. I didn't want this to be a story about a man and his dogs versus an HOA president. I wanted it to be a story about a criminal breaking the law. Dispatch answered, and I kept my voice calm the way I used to when things got ugly. "Someone is attempting to force entry into my home," I said. "She's claiming authority under HOA. I have video." Tracy kicked again, and the door shuddered. I swear to God, in my head I thought, is she out of her mind? And then another thought, quieter and darker. What if she actually gets in? What if my family gets hurt because I tried to be polite for too long? I stepped back from the door and gave the command I rarely use inside the house. Skye. Place. Skye moved to a position near the hallway entrance. Body, low eyes fixed. Diesel. Stay. Diesel trembled with restraint, not from fear, but from training, from discipline, from waiting for me to say what happens next. Tracy's voice rose into a near scream. "I'm coming in, Mark. You can't hide behind your little military act. HOA has jurisdiction." That word jurisdiction coming out of her mouth was so absurd, I almost laughed. Almost. And then crack. The deadbolt held, but the frame groaned. Tracy wasn't just pounding anymore. She was trying to break in. That's when I spoke through the door loud enough for the camera and the neighbors and the universe itself. "Tracy, I said you are on camera. You are trespassing. Leave my property now." She yelled back, "I have a key." And then, like a cartoon villain with no self-awareness, she shoved the metal object into the lock and twisted. It didn't fit. Of course it didn't fit. She tried again, cursing. I heard something scrape, heard her panic turn into rage. And then she did the dumbest thing, yet she started slamming her shoulder into the door. The police arrived fast, sirens slicing through the night like a blade. The moment Tracy heard them, she froze just for a second, and then she spun around with her hands in the air like she'd been the victim the whole time. "Officer," she shouted, voice instantly switching to theatrical distress. "He threatened me. He's refusing an HOA inspection. He has attack dogs." 2 officers approached, hands near their belts, eyes scanning. I opened the door carefully, chain still on, and held my phone up to show the live camera feed recording everything. "Good morning," I said, and my voice sounded older than I felt. "That woman has been trying to break into my house. She claims she has authority through the HOA. I called because she kicked my door and attempted to use a fake key. Tracy whipped her head toward me. "Fake," she screeched. "It's a master key." The HOA 1 officer held up a hand. "Ma'am," he said firm, "step back." Tracy didn't. She stepped closer, jabbing the metal object toward him like it was evidence of her righteousness. "See HOA key. We have access for emergencies." The officer looked at it unimpressed. "That's not how that works," he said. "You can't just force entry into someone's home." Tracy's face twisted. "But I'm the president," she insisted like the title was a shield. The officer's partner glanced at my doorframe, now scuffed and damaged, and then at my phone screen. "You have video?" he asked. I nodded and turned the screen so he could see Tracy kicking my door, screaming about a master key, trying to jam it into the lock. Tracy's confidence cracked. "He's editing it," she blurted. "He's manipulating. Ma'am," the first officer said, voice turning colder. "You're on camera right now. We watched you." Tracy sputtered, blinking fast like her brain couldn't compute consequences. And then, because Tracy could never stop digging, she snapped, "Fine, arrest him then. He's non-compliant with HOA authority." The officer stared at her for a long beat. "This isn't an HOA matter," he said. "This is criminal trespass and attempted forced entry." Tracy's mouth fell open. "No," she said softer, like she was bargaining with reality. "No, you don't understand." That was the moment I saw it clearly, the truth underneath all her bluster. Tracy didn't want order. She wanted control. And control only works if everyone agrees to pretend it's real. The next day, Daniel filed emergency motions with the court. He attached the video. He attached the certified mail receipts. He attached the financial documents Angela found, including that suspicious Whitman Community Solutions line item. We didn't just accuse Tracy of being a bully, we showed a pattern of harassment, falsified violations, and possible self-dealing with HOA funds. And because we had real evidence, not neighborhood gossip, the case didn't stay small for long. An investigator from the state showed up requesting records. Then another. Then, on a gray afternoon that felt like the sky itself was holding its breath, a federal agent named Kelly Hart walked into the HOA office with a folder so thick it looked heavy enough to bend time. There was a board meeting scheduled that evening. Tracy tried to hold it at her house again, of course, because she loved her little kingdom, but this time Daniel insisted we do it at the community center under proper notice. Residents packed the room. People who'd been quiet for years sat upright like they'd finally remembered they had spines. Tracy walked in late wearing a crisp blazer like she was on TV, chin-lifted eyes scanning for allies. When she saw me, her lips curled. "Oh," she said loud enough for the room, the troublemaker. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My camera was rolling, and so were 3 other people's phones, and Tracy didn't even realize the power had already shifted. Daniel stood and spoke calmly, laying out the evidence like stepping stones across a river, the harassment, the false fines, the defamation, the attempted break-in. Tracy laughed sharply. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "This man is weaponizing his military background to intimidate the board." Someone in the back muttered, "You tried to kick his door in at 4 in the morning," and a ripple of uneasy laughter moved through the crowd. Tracy's face flashed red. "Lies," she shouted. "He has attack dogs. He's dangerous." Agent Hart chose that moment to step forward. "Tracy Whitman," she asked, voice even professional. Tracy blinked. "Yes?" she said, suddenly cautious. Agent Hart opened her folder. "I'm Special Agent Kelly Hart," she said. "We've reviewed complaints and financial discrepancies related to Maple Grove HOA operations, specifically misuse of association funds, falsified enforcement actions, and intimidation tactics used to compel payments." Tracy's mouth tightened. "This is a misunderstanding," she said quickly. "I'm a volunteer." "I'm protecting, ma'am," Agent Hart said, cutting in with quiet force. "We also have video evidence of you attempting forced entry into a private residence while claiming authority you do not legally possess." Tracy's eyes darted around the room like she wanted someone to rescue her, but all she saw were faces that had stopped being afraid. "You can't do this," Tracy whispered. "I'm the president." Agent Hart's expression didn't change. "You are not a government official," she said. "You do not have police powers, and you do not have immunity." Then she nodded to the local officer standing near the door, and in the sudden silence, real heavy silence, I heard the click of handcuffs like punctuation at the end of a long, ugly sentence. Tracy's voice rose into a frantic pitch. "This is harassment. This is a coup. You people are ruining the community." Agent Hart leaned closer and said something I'll never forget because it landed like a gavel. "No, ma'am, you did." Tracy's shoulders shook, not with tears, but with rage and disbelief, as if the universe had betrayed her by having laws. As she was led out, she twisted her head back toward me, eyes wild, and spat. "This isn't over." I watched her go, and I didn't feel joy. I felt something quieter, like air returning to a room that had been sealed too long. That night I stood by my repaired front door, running my hand along the new frame, feeling the solid strength of it. Diesel lay at my feet, breathing slow. Skye rested her head on her paws, eyes finally soft. Angela came beside me, and for the first time in months, my daughters walked through the living room without that tight, guarded look on their faces. The neighborhood outside was still the same street, the same sidewalks, the same manicured lawns, but the fear had shifted. The power had shifted. Tracy Whitman's kingdom wasn't taken from her by force. It collapsed under the weight of her own arrogance on camera in public, where she couldn't bully the truth into silence. The lesson is simple. Control only works when good people stay quiet.